So welcome everyone to our 1 hour event. It will probably just get up to 2 o'clock and hopefully we'll make it. But we're here today to talk about cybersecurity careers unveiled, myths, insights and success stories. We've got some lovely guests here today. We have Ventura MBE, Shanai King, and we've got Wendy Goucher from BCSWomen, and we have also got Hedvig M, who is here today from. Who are you representing today, Hedvig? Is it Cyberwomen CIC? Yeah. We'll do proper introductions in a minute. I'll just take you through some slides talking about the different groups and also what we're going to be talking about today. So first off, I'll just cover BCSWomen, who are the main group that are presenting today. So BCSWomen is a specialist group at BCS, and we're a group dedicated to supporting female and non-binary tech professionals and tackling the industry's gender gap. BCSWomen is the largest networking group for women working in computing in the UK, and we offer a range of support for women throughout their career, including events and conferences such as the BCS Lovelace Colloquium. We do offer professional networking and access to training and mentors as well. So if you're not already a member, please do consider either becoming a BCS member and then joining BCSWomen, or if you're a BCS member, you can also, join BCSWomen as well. And for our second group, it's the SIGIST, which is we're the software testing specialist group. We are the largest non-profit testing community in the UK. Joining SIGIST will empower you to engage with the software testing community, if that's in your skill set. You can also participate in our events and conferences. We can connect you with learning from other members of our community. And, we also do a software testing letter called the Tester that goes out, I think, quarterly. And if we have any other announcements, we also do a newsletter as well. If you want to join SIGIST, the email is on the screen and includes SIGIST in the subject. And if you want to stay up to date with SIGIST activities, you can follow us on all of our social media channels as well. We're most active on LinkedIn. We've got a company page there. So if you follow that one, you'll definitely get access to all of our information. And of course, if you're not a member of the BCS, as I've mentioned, there's a link on the screen and you can go ahead and join the BCS. I'm actually chair of SIGIST as well as being part of BCSWomen, and that's probably why I'm hosting today, because I'm the best person to do it. Okay, so in overview, we're just having a little bit of a welcoming introduction now, but we're going to follow that by having some 10-minute lightning talks from our team that's here today. And first up, we've got Lisa Ventura, who's going to be talking about myth-busting cybersecurity careers and key facts. So I'm just going to hand over to Lisa so that she can introduce herself.
Thank you very much, Nicola. It's a pleasure to be here today. So my name is Lisa Ventura, and I'm the founder of Cybersecurity Unity. I'm also a published author, writer, and keynote speaker in cybersecurity.
Thank you very much. And then we've got another talk on navigating the hybrid cloud security space. And our speaker is Shanai King, and Shanai's from Lloyd's Banking Group. Shanai, do you want to come off mute and introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Hi, everybody. Lovely to be here as well. I'm Shanai King. I'm the Hybrid Cloud Security Engineering Lead at Lloyd's Banking Group. My current remit is securing a hybrid cloud environment or inside Azure. I've been in cybersecurity for over 10 years, and I've started doing a few more of these talks because I'm really passionate about bringing new people into the industry and getting a little bit more information out there about how to do it and what the different types of things you can do in the industry are. So yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you. Okay, and then the next talk after that is from Wendy Goucher, and it's going to be Women in Cyber, Challenges and Triumphs. Wendy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. It's lovely to be amongst these lovely women who are going to tell us things that are going to be great. I know. I work for Arcanum as a cybersecurity consultant. I specialize in risk and assurance. I'm also doing some research into OT, which is a big thing for me. So if you work in OT, please get in touch. And I also write a wee bit as well. I have a couple of books or so, and that's all around cyber as well.
Great. And Wendy's also a member of the Neurodiverse IT.
I am.
As well within BCS. And then we've got a panel discussion, and we have an additional speaker joining us. So Hedvig, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Same as all the others, it's lovely to be here. A lot of talks to look forward to, and I look forward to participate on the panel as well. I am representing CyberWomen Groups, CIC, as their technical liaison, looking at sort of offensive security practices. And then I'm also a full-time OT cybersecurity consultant in the energy industry. So I'll be looking forward to providing some insights from those perspectives.
Brilliant. So when we get to the panel, we'll have everybody speaking, and it'll be approximately 20 minutes. I'd ask everyone that if you've got questions, etc., that you keep them for after the panel discussion, and we'll try and make some time for that to happen. And then it will be closing remarks, and that will be the end. I'll just say that we came up with the idea for this talk whilst I think it was myself, Lisa, and Shanai who were on a talk for Every Woman in Tech, and we just started to talk about all of the kind of myths and stories around getting roles in testing and QA, and also in cybersecurity. So that was the idea for today. So I hope that you all learn some interesting information about careers and other areas of cybersecurity. Yeah, so I will just push on to the next slide. Please do remember to add your questions in the chat. It's really important so that we can ask them at the end. I'm really curious to see what you think after all of the talks, and anything that you might want to ask that's been, a burning question for you on cybersecurity or quality. Okay, and then after that, it will be the panel discussion and Q&A, and pathways to success in security, as I've mentioned. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to hand over to Lisa.
Bear with me a second. Hopefully you should all now be able to see my screen. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about myth busting around cybersecurity careers. And this talk, I hope, will highlight the importance and growth of cyber, and address many of those misconceptions that discourage people from pursuing cybersecurity careers, and also cover some of the myths that are absolutely rife in the cybersecurity industry, and hopefully debunk them a little bit. So I'll go straight into it. Myth one that I see doing the rounds all the time is that you need to be a tech genius. And the misconception there is that cybersecurity is only for programming experts or hacker prodigies, and it's not really open or available to anybody else. But the reality is that diverse roles, including non-technical ones, such as risk assessment compliance, are just as important, and there are loads of roles out there in those areas. So you definitely don't need to be technical in order to get into a career in cybersecurity. And the reality as well is that entry-level technical roles will often provide on-the-job training. So if you can get that to leg up into the cybersecurity industry, you'll often find that once you're in a role, you'll be able to get that on-the-job training that you need. And another reality to debunk this myth is that problem solving and a willingness to learn matter much more than advanced technical skills. And I'm going to put my hands up right here and say that I am not a techie, and I'm not a technical person. But I came into the cybersecurity industry back in 2009 when I joined an organization called Titania. I'd spent a number of years prior to that in the entertainment industry, so it was a real pivot for me into cybersecurity. And I got into the whole social engineering piece, the whole cyber awareness training piece. And that's where my passion within cybersecurity lies. So I will often take a lot of really technical information and I will demystify it and rewrite it to present to audiences that perhaps don't have cyber on their radar, and as a result don't really understand, you know, what it is and why they need to be bothered about it. So that's very much where my expertise lays, is presenting that really sort of technical information, breaking it down into easy to understand and jargon-free communication. So the next myth I'm going to debunk is that cybersecurity is all about hacking. And the misconception is that the field is solely about offensive hacking, but the reality is that there's a very broad scope, which includes things like prevention, cloud security, and cyber awareness training and education. And there's also a focus on building and maintaining systems, not just breaking into them. And team efforts to secure organizations are more common than Hollywood style hacking that you often see in these series and films. Myth 3. So a career in cybersecurity requires a computer science degree. Now, this is one that really, I have to say, does annoy me when I see it out there, and I see people that are looking to get into cybersecurity and they do have this misapprehension that they need a computer science degree. And that misconception is that a computer science degree is mandatory to get into the cybersecurity field. I'm not saying that degrees don't have their place, and there may be certain degree pathways that are appropriate into certain areas. But the reality is that industry certifications such as CompTIA, Security Plus, or the CISSP are often much more relevant. And boot camps, internships, and self-study methods also offer alternative pathways. So there are lots of cybersecurity government-funded boot camps out there, and I wholeheartedly support and endorse Caps Lock if you're looking to get into the cybersecurity industry. And practical skills and experience will often outweigh traditional degrees in many cases. The fourth myth that I'm going to debunk is that it's too late to start a career in cybersecurity, and the misconception is that it's only for younger people or recent graduates. But the reality is that career changes bring really valuable perspectives from fields such as healthcare, finance, and law. And the demand for talent ensures that there are opportunities for all ages and all career stages. We talk a lot about the cyber skills gap, and I think there's enough opportunities out there, regardless of what stage you are in your career. And life experience is often a key asset when it comes to developing security strategies. And myth 5, cybersecurity is just a men's club. And the misconception there is that cybersecurity is a male-dominated field with limited space for diversity. Now, there's no doubt that cybersecurity is quite a male-dominated field, but I think it is getting better, and I think that diversity is starting to show through. And the reality is that there are fantastic inclusion efforts through groups like WeSys, Girls Can Code, and diverse teams provide better problem solving and security outcomes. And women and underrepresented groups are actually increasingly thriving in this field. And myth 6 is that cybersecurity is stressful and isolated work, with the misconception being that it's high pressure, that it's quite lonely, and people often feel quite isolated as a result. But the reality is that collaborated roles and team environments are all very common. And remote work doesn't have to mean isolation. Teams can stay connected via a myriad of different tools and communications channels. And work is often fulfilling because it directly protects organizations and individuals. The next myth, myth number 7, is that cybersecurity doesn't pay that well. And a lot of people tend to think that cybersecurity roles are often underpaid. The reality is that the average cybersecurity salary in the UK is around 54,994 per annum, and specialist roles can earn significantly more. And there are also additional perks, including remote working, ongoing training and education, flexible hours, all those things that people value really highly within their careers. So I've just put on a few key facts about cybersecurity careers, and they are certainly in high demand. There's an estimated 3.5 million unfulfilled jobs globally in cybersecurity by next year in 2025. And it's a really dynamic field. So constant evolution means continuous learning and excitement. I mean, for me, I'm learning still every single day that I'm in cybersecurity. No 2 days are the same, and there's always a new thing to learn, or there's a new threat that's out, or a high-profile cyber attack has happened. I'm always on that constant learning path. And the work is really impactful because it protects businesses and infrastructure, and it makes a tangible difference, and the difference between whether they will get hit by a cyber attack or if they're not. So for me, I get a lot of immense satisfaction, and especially when I talk to those smaller businesses that even though it's 2024, almost 2025, a lot of them will still say to me, but we're too small. A hacker isn't going to worry about us, so we don't need to worry about cybersecurity. We'll be all right. And even if just for 1 second that was even true, which it absolutely isn't, but assuming hypothetically it was, what about their supply chains and the companies that they do business with? How can they be sure that all those organizations are as secure as they can be against cyber attacks? And if the worst happens to a company in their supply chain, that could easily cascade down into their organization. And as a small business, it's not just the financial damage, it's the reputational damage, and it could potentially put them out of business. So for me, that's where I get a lot of that positive, I'm making a real difference in what I do. And transferable skills like problem solving, communication, and curiosity are all absolutely critical. So just to sum up, while there are many myths about careers in cybersecurity, they are just that. They are myths. And a career in cybersecurity can provide great accessibility, diversity, and growth potential. And cybersecurity can be a viable and rewarding career option. So find the pathway into the industry that's right for you, and explore opportunities in the field and network with other cybersecurity professionals. Community is powerful, and community is the ethos behind what I do at Cybersecurity Unity. And there's a whole bunch of us in not just at BCS, but in the cybersecurity community overall, that are always happy to help. So do reach out to us. So if you have any questions, do sort of put them to me at the end. My contact details are on the screen, and I hope you've enjoyed just a little bit of that myth busting within the cybersecurity industry.
Thank you, Elisa. That was really, really insightful, actually. Learned quite a bit. Surprised to hear, that there's no huge need for you to be overly technical. You wouldn't think that if you saw job adverts. So, that's
Correct.
totally off-putting to people when they see the job adverts. But we hear from people like you, and we realize it's quite different. Okay, so Shanai, you're up next. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. I'm actually quite glad I followed you on that one, Lisa, because as you were bringing up some of those myths, I had to smirk quite a few times because I've heard people everywhere talk about these things. I guess just to be a prime example of how those are just myths, I came to the UK 10 years ago. Before then, I was running hotels in Australia. I now landed in the UK and I've been in cybersecurity for the last 10 years. I couldn't have even guessed that this would have been where my future came. Was going to be, am I ambitious? Yes, definitely. Do I have a degree from university? And no, I don't. Am I extremely technical? I would say I am technical, but not a techie, which I like to differentiate between the two. I understand the language. I understand what we do. Do I write code? No, I don't. So I'm quite happy that I followed on from you, Lisa, because I do think that it's really commonly seen that cybersecurity and IT generally, I suspect, but cybersecurity definitely is something that people kind of dream about and think about, but perhaps don't know how to get near. So I am going to share my screen. If I do this properly. There we go. So I guess introduction, I think I've done it. Shanai King, nice to see you all. I am essentially going to be here talking to you about the future of hybrid cloud and any potential opportunities as I sort of see them. So what does the future look like for a hybrid cloud environment? So for those of you who aren't aware, hybrid cloud environment, the nature of the word hybrid essentially says, you've got public cloud, came a little while ago, you've got Microsoft, AWS, Google kind of leading the way in the public cloud space. You've got on-premise estates where all our organizations manage their own infrastructure, all the services on-prem, we call it. Hybrid is, by the nature of the word, a blend of the two. Now, my current role is standing up a hybrid cloud environment in Azure, as I said earlier. What this does mean is we have to think about how can we leverage a lot of the public cloud native technologies and service offerings that Microsoft, AWS, Google, etc. provide versus what on-premise capabilities do we need to share between, do we need to utilize as well that perhaps they can't give us. Now, I've done a little bit of I've had quite a few chats actually before this session around what we think the nature of hybrid cloud looks like for the future. And what I found really interesting was a lot of people are asking questions around, is there a future? So I've been to quite a few conferences over the last couple of years, and public cloud came out and it was the most exciting thing in the world of ever. It was, oh my God, this is amazing. It's scalable, elasticity, it's cheaper. It's, we don't have to manage our on-prem infrastructure. It's going to be miles better for everybody. Yet a lot of companies wouldn't actually put any of their kind of crown jewels or sensitive data in the public cloud environment, just given it was brand new. We weren't that familiar with the services that were being offered. We didn't understand the security around the services that were being offered, how actually Microsoft will be looking after their own tin. Now, where we are today is probably a lot further on. There's much more of a trust in those services. They've been around around the patch for a little while now. Companies are starting to change their risk profile. So whilst we are, I guess, getting a little bit more risque on what we put up there, it's because we have more trust in those cloud service providers, and we are trying to kind of test the waters a little bit more about putting more of our important stuff there. So one of the questions I keep getting asked is, what kind of opportunities are there in hybrid cloud environments? And I guess I used to think about security being security, and security is surely the same across everything. And whilst I think being understanding security generally is always going to be beneficial, so depending if you're technical or non-technical, understanding the general premise of security and the general controls, something like ISO might push out to us, and all of your industry standards, I think it's really important to start thinking about how do we need to use that knowledge and apply it differently in the new world. If we start to think about actual roles, I've played a lot in the sort of architecture consultancy space, and in terms of where we're moving, probably further slightly away from on-premise into hybrid and public cloud environments, there's always going to be a need for architecture and consultancy. One big thing I would say is understanding architectures. So if you understand where the company wants to go, i.e., where is it now? Where does its infrastructure sit? Where do its services lie? What kind of transformation journey they're on? You can then understand how to apply your security expertise to that. So there are tons of technical roles, but there are also tons of not so technical roles. So if I actually started from the top on this slide, architecture and consultancy, I always find is technical, but it's also kind of a little bit more holistic. I prefer to play in this space because architecture and consultancy has to align to strategy, in my view. I believe that that's kind of the what, sort of the where, what are we doing and how are we going to get there? In the hybrid cloud environments and moving to public cloud, IAM controls, so identity access management controls, become even more imperative, and they're also slightly more complex. So by the nature of us putting stuff over in a hybrid cloud or a public cloud environment, we need to make sure that we can maintain our access to those environments. That is one of our biggest areas of control when we're putting stuff in someone else's data centers, where someone else is managing that infrastructure and those services. Engineering, DevOps, security operations, that's where, in my view, you get a little bit more technical. We're talking about, deploying code through CI/CD pipelines. We're talking about standing up new things in these environments and actually engineering and building those products or services. Operations, a little bit more reactive. So you need to understand how to actually design what you're actually going to be responding to. So I work definitely on more the proactive side. So in terms of what we build, we make sure we build securely. So I make sure that we build our platforms and our landing zones or environments up to a certain spec and make sure that, it's actually more difficult for them to be hacked or infiltrated or for data to be exfiltrated from the network, etc. Where security operations come in, you would ideally like to think that I've essentially been responsible for building that platform and building the security of that platform so that when an alert lands with an operations person, it's an alert that we care about. It's something that we've designed to be important to the business and the organization, so someone has to do something about that. Where I always used to find a really interesting space to play was risk governance and compliance. I have got them separately there, but you'll hear GRC quite a lot. Risk and governance is so important to an organization. Everything that an organization does is based on risk appetite. And as I said previously, I think the risk appetite of organizations are changing due to the nature of us being more trusting of these public cloud and hybrid cloud opportunities that we've got. Governance for making sure that organizations can put things in these places is really, really important. And then obviously maintaining the compliance of those things that we put there. So any applications we move over, databases, services we stand up, making sure that those things remain compliant to a state that the company is comfortable with from a risk appetite perspective. Another one that I find really interesting, and I don't, it's not everybody's bag, but I find this one quite interesting and certain a different way of thinking. Threat intelligence. If you enjoy listening to what's happening in the news and understanding, what's happening to big companies out there or geopolitics, what the nature of big decisions might actually be, I think threat intelligence is probably going to be a really good place for you to play in. But this just shows, this was just me listing a few opportunities that I see every day in my role, and the teams that I rely on all sit in these different spaces. And I'm just on that proactive side. So I'm on the build and the stand up of environments, whereas, there are so much more to it. I know Lisa and Wendy and Hedvig all come into some of the other options, but that's, that world is so big and there's just so many opportunities there. I hope that was interesting.
I'm thinking that there were some problems with the slides.
Oh no.
How many you had, but we were on the intro slide. Would you be able to share them afterwards?
Oh, no.
Anyone asked?
Yes, sorry. Oh, that's really frustrating. Yes, I will put some of the options in the chat too and what was in there as well, so you can have a look.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Sorry guys, I couldn't see the comments.
I muted myself, sorry. Okay, so we obviously have to try and keep to time. So Wendy, do you want to go ahead and present?
Yeah, yes, I will, and I'll be mindful of the fact we are running behind time, so I will try and keep us. I'm not going to say anything like as much as the ladies have, because they've been very factual. Can you see my screen, by the way? Am I sharing my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Right. Okay, so I'm very quickly going to talk about challenges and trials, because I think it's important when you're going into any profession to realize that it's not necessarily all sunshiny. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So I come from the perspective of being a woman obviously. This is my second career. I was a lecturer in management and psychology and economics and anything that didn't have to do with numbers. And yes, that can be economics for a long time. So I came into this late in my career. And so I came across a few challenges. I'm also neurodiverse. I have dyspraxia and ADHD. So that concentrating is great fun. So let me just have a look at some of the challenges. Well, that's me, just sat surrounded by usually history books, actually.
Wendy,
Well,
can you
yes.
share the right screen? I can see your speaker notes.
I don't think there are any speaker notes, so I think we're fine. I'm trying to show the right screen. Let me bring that. Let me come out of that if I can. No. Right. Just see it as it is. Let's not let it drag, because I'm conscious we're very much behind time and we want to have a discussion.
Okay.
Okay. When I was studying at college, I was the official tester of idiot-proof programs because that's where computing was at the time. Because my computing lecturer said that there was nobody else who was less intuitive towards a computer than me. So that is who I am, and that is what I do. Where are we? There we go. This happened to me a couple of years ago before I moved to Arcanum. Somebody actually said this to me when I went for a contract. If you're serious about being in this profession, you'll roll your sleeves up and make an effort. My neurodiversity means that while I can write, prepare people for, mark, anything you like to do with exams, I enjoy being in exam hall. My brain doesn't churn the answers out as in the way that it should. I also have a difficulty learning. So I couldn't take all those lovely exams, which I would love to have. So this particular person thought that if I wanted to be in cyber, then I should make a bit more of an effort. Yeah. And the third was said to me quite early on, that my greatest asset, if you like, was being a non-threatening middle-aged woman, because nobody would see that as a challenge to their career, and everybody would be very nice. Didn't actually work out like that, but it's not the biggest compliment somebody can give you. Let's just put it that way. And it is difficult, it is challenging. But what I have learnt is that you need to find yourself, who you are, what's best for you, what you can bring to the profession. And when you do that, you can start achieving. And I'm going to just go on to triumphs now. So I wrote some textbooks. I'm not writing anymore. I promised my family I wouldn't write anymore. But the first one, the BCS one on the left, is talks about the fact you can be an information security auditor and bring what people call soft skills, in other words, non-tech skills, into that space and may be able to make a contribution. I also write storybooks. These are bringing cyber safety to, in this case, 4 to 7-year-olds, just using story. And they were finalists in the Real Cyber Awards last year, which was amazing when you consider that there are lots of really, really good cyber books out there. I now write short stories for older people, for retired people who don't have an IT team behind them. And they come out, they're in Kindle because then it's free, but I'm also recording them. My point here is my ability very much is writing and communicating with people. And I now am in a position where I can use that and it's meaningful. So I am not trying to be somebody else. And the Conan Doyle was a finalist in the Cyber Trailblazer Award. Arcanum, a couple of years ago, offered me a job, just came to me and offered me a job. This is a relatively small company, less than 100 people. All my colleagues are crazy smart. I mean, like really, really smart, but they offered me a job. And I cannot tell you how much that means after having so many people telling me I'm not a proper cyber person, to come into the profession in this way and have people who respect you is massive. Previous to that, I worked for myself, perhaps not the best environment for me. And yeah, I have another Isha. This is for the slightly older kids, and that won an award last week. So it was a Cyber Book of the Year. So that was amazing. Again, it sort of got me into writing policies, but they don't let me use as many pictures, so that doesn't work so well. But with the BCS, I'm now a chartered fellow with the BCS. This is the graduation group of 2023. It is amazing how many people, how many different people are members of the BCS. Lots of different challenges, lots of different experiences. I was very concerned at the beginning I wasn't tech enough. It doesn't matter. That's not what I take. And I'm on the council for the BCS and the community board, as well as being a member of BCSWomen Diverse IT and the information security group. It's amazing. And I'm no longer there as the oddball, which is what I thought was probably my biggest asset. So to finish, I want to leave you with one more thought when I can hand-eye coordinate. There we go. Whatever you're going into, but particularly coming into a profession that is as broad as cyber and as broad as computing as a whole, be the very best version of you that you can be. Make yourself and the talents you have better. I take the books into schools. I trained as a teacher, but I went off to learn to be a storyteller. I learned from a well-known acting coach, and learned how to be a storyteller because I wanted to do the best thing for the children and for the teachers. And you need to think about that. You don't need to turn into somebody else. You need to be the best person that you can be. And I will come out of that and let Nicola have some time for some questions.
Well, we're not quite getting to the Q&A yet, but we are, well, we're going into the panel discussion now. But thank you, all of you, for your talks. For those of you who had problems seeing the slides, we will share them if everybody's agrees to that. And obviously the whole presentation, the whole event is actually being recorded. So that will be available on YouTube at some point within the next 2 to 3 weeks, if not before. Okay, so the next part of the event is the panel discussion. And now we'll bring Hedvig into the group as well. And we're going to talk about pathways to success in cybersecurity. And I think my first question, if everybody's sharing their video who is on the panel and everyone else can switch those off, is for Lisa. Lisa, could you share an example of how a misconception about cybersecurity has hindered someone's career progression?
Absolutely. So I also do a lot of mentoring and supporting, particularly for women who want to get into cybersecurity careers. And I remember one particular lady that I was mentoring. She said, "Do you know what?" She said, "I'm done with trying to get into the cybersecurity industry because it just feels really, really unwelcoming." And I kind of delved into that a little bit more, and I said, "Yeah, what do you mean unwelcoming?" She said, "Well," she said, "it's all the imagery. It's all padlocks and shields and blue and dark colors and people that have got hoodies on and they're sort of huddled over their keyboards." And she said, I just feel like such an outsider against all of that." And she decided that she didn't want to, enter the industry as a result. So I actually do a lot of talks around trying to come away from some of that imagery we see so much within the cybersecurity industry, all those padlock shields, color blue, etc. So that is, to me, certainly something that hindered what could have potentially been a really good candidate coming into the cybersecurity industry. And I think it's something that we all need to be a little bit sort of mindful of when we're looking at the imagery and the branding of our organizations and things like that around it, so that we do have that more welcoming element. I think that would really help.
Maybe that needs to be a project or something that
Yeah.
start up. So that's actually quite, when you do think of cybersecurity, you immediately, those images, those memes that you see, it's always
Yeah.
like a padlock or somebody looking like
Yeah.
really shady, or really
Mm.
dark colors against, really, it just looks really like something terrible's happening, and obviously that's not really going to attract people to want to work in the industry, I suppose. I never really thought about it, because that's literally, if you put a search into Canva, they're the type of images that immediately
Mm.
come back. Okay. Did you want to say anything else about the misconceptions before we go on to Shanai's question?
Just to say that, as I sort of said in my slide, they are all myths and misconceptions. But I think as an industry, if we can try to, debunk as many of them, as soon as we hear one or we hear something like that, if we can call it out, or try to sort of, post, something positive around it, I think that might be that might be really helpful.
I've got an idea for a project. Anyway, I'll speak to you about it later. But
Great.
Shanai, over to you. What are the key challenges in hybrid cloud security, and how should professionals prepare for them?
So I found this question quite automatic. I had like an automatic response in my head for this one. Then I sort of sat on it for a couple of days, and I thought, well, for me, it's visibility. So initially, my team were working on private cloud environments. So we're setting up essentially an environment in someone else's data center. What we're looking to do now, what I would say is, with hybrid cloud environments, visibility is it's more complex than if you had everything in one place. So if you had everything operating in your own data center, you were responsible for the tin, the security around it, the network, everything. And, you can sort of see, touch and feel that the same way as if you would put everything in Azure, or everything in Google, or everything in AWS. When you start kind of crossing those barriers a little bit, like we start building an environment in somebody else's data center, we start cross-pollinating things like different technologies. So we might be able to use a lot of Azure native tooling or Google native tooling to do certain things, but they might not give us the same kind of services as we'd have if we had our own control of our own stuff, particularly if we've got stuff split across both estates. So for me, the biggest challenge for hybrid cloud environments is visibility of your data, your network traffic, what points A to B, making sure your connectivity is in place. That would be probably my first one. How do we know where everything is? It's operating at at the exact same time. That's quite complex. Again, as soon as you start putting things in different places, you have to manage access in perhaps the same way, but with different technologies, different tools, different environments. That would be my second kind of automatic answer. The other one that I found quite interesting is, because we're operating with the shared responsibility model now, so essentially we're putting our trust in our public cloud providers in this example. If you're using multiple cloud providers, it might be that they deliver the same services in terms of security services, but they implement them in slightly different ways. So you're then operating with slightly different consistencies. Is that the right word? Yeah. So say, for example, we've got stuff operating in Google, we've got stuff operating in Azure, we've got stuff in AWS, which, is the nature of a lot of big organizations. We've got kind of stuff everywhere. If we want to maintain compliance, or we want to scan against vulnerabilities, or we want to spin stuff up, they use similar tooling, but still different. So the inconsistencies that can bring does bring a challenge to an organization in terms of understanding the entire risk posture of what they've got everywhere. So getting that kind of holistic view of all their platforms across all environments and all the cloud estate, that I think is probably the hardest thing for an organization to do, in my experience anyway. In terms of how to prepare for them, I think it goes back to what I was sort of saying previously. I would understand where the company direction is going, wherever you're working or wherever you're intending to work. No organization in this day and age is standing still, and things are ever changing, and security, if nothing else, I think change is genuinely the only constant. So what I would say is understand where your organization's going, get involved in, speaking the language, talking about how they get from A to B, be proactive, try and figure out how your skills, whatever those skills are, can naturally be applied to that direction where the organization's going. That's what I would say.
Okay, sorry, I was just taken away from that for just a second because I saw lots of questions coming into the chat, so that's good. Okay, thank you, Shanai. That's brilliant. Next up, we have a question from Wendy. Okay, so you've got a lot of notes against this question, Wendy, but I'm going to hand over to you. What are the biggest obstacles women face in cybersecurity, and how can these be overcome?
For me, the biggest obstacles are self-belief. I think we feel the need very often as women to feel worthy and feel able. And if I was any good at this, I would know I was good at this, like all the guys look as if they do. It's actually not like that. Guys feel bad too. So we have to cut ourselves some slack. We have to reach out to each other and support each other. And when you see somebody who is not behaving the way that they normally do, be there in case they just want somebody to have a coffee with. That is, for me, the biggest concern is that we expect too much of ourselves from day one. We expect to walk through the door able to do it, and nobody else does, and nobody expects you to. So that to me is a particular problem for women.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. And Hedwig, I've got a question for you as well now. What role does quality assurance play in ensuring robust cybersecurity systems?
Thank you for the question. First of all, I would like to say that that is a really big question to tackle in a few minutes. But essentially, quality assurance has multiple levels, I would say. But it all comes back to requirements based on, the protection of systems or certain sort of levels of security you want to meet. From a cybersecurity perspective, you can, of course, also quality assure in terms of capabilities and skills. But from a sort of implementing cybersecurity perspective, it all comes back to requirements, which are based on sort of assessing risk, as Shanai has also mentioned. And it's all about, the potentials, because it's about ensuring both the sort of security implementations that you need to implement, as well as ongoingly quality assuring the ones you have implemented meets the expectations or requirements that you have set to protect the systems, again, based on the risks you have identified. So there's sort of a lot of components to it. But for instance, from an OT security perspective, when there's critical systems in play, there is this new level. So quality assurance is important and significant in all of cybersecurity. But once you move into the OT area, sorry? Okay, so once you go into the OT cybersecurity area, everything okay?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Then you also need to ensure that the assets that you develop are secure in terms of the potential physical consequences. And the big challenge here is that, the lifespan of an IT system is typically 5 years, right? Whereas just the design and development can take from anywhere to 7 to 10 years. And then you have the additional operational life cycle, which is 15 to 30 years. And during this time, it's actually really difficult to implement cybersecurity measures like new ones, as you would sort of. So the quality assurance is super, super critical before you go into those stages. And you need to think about all the potentials, risks that could happen. So it's super complex. But by setting the right criteria and requirements based on the protection levels you want, often standardized by regulations and legislations, you're able to ensure cybersecurity even with all of these, complexities, which is really fascinating. And I could talk about this for hours, but I hope that answers the question.
No, that does. And I know that Wendy will probably want to speak to you some more about the OT aspects of it as well. Obviously now you've got a connection, so I hope to hear lots more exciting things around OT from both of you in the future. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think we've got a few more questions I need to pose to you also. We've got some general questions now. Lisa and Hedvig, the first one is for you, so I don't know who wants to try and answer first. What is one piece of advice you wish you had been given at the start of your career?
I don't mind going first on this one. And for me, it's you will be targeted by a huge amount of bullies and abusers within the industry. And actually, a lot of the bullying that I've experienced has actually come from women, surprisingly, not from men. And it will make you feel absolutely worthless. It will make you feel that you want to leave the industry. I'm so glad I didn't. But what I wish I'd been, to just almost just sort of warned about that, and about the fact that there are these, quite sort of nasty, jealous people out there. But what I will say is, if you do find yourself a target of one of these unfortunate individuals, it says far more about them than it ever does about you, for sure. But it took me a long time to learn that.
Hedvig, do you want to try and answer that one from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it actually touches upon what a lot of you have already spoken about today, which is this concept of, technical versus non-technical. There's a lot of, concerns from a lot of people from both regards, because, personally, I was always told that go technical first. And, I had the opportunity to, and I was always told, oh, if you don't go technical early in your career, you'll struggle later in your career. And it's easy to go from technical to the other way around. But then at the same time, you have so many incredible opportunities for non-technical people. And as you've all said today, there are so, the whole landscape is changing in terms of focusing on these abilities as well. So I think, cybersecurity is not about what you are capable of doing or what you have done before. It's about what you, want to do, where you're willing to go, and where you are sort of able to go. It's all about the future because everything changes so fast. And it's just about, being able to keep up with that change and maybe, abstracting everything you learn and everything you're curious about. So it's not, just black and white in terms of, oh, is this technical? I don't want to go technical. Think about how it could be used, in a non-technical aspect, perhaps, or vice versa. I think it's just about, identifying these opportunities and going for it. I think the worst thing you can do is just limiting yourself, not believing in yourself, and not taking the opportunities, essentially.
I think it really depends on you as a person, or whether or not the people that you work with are supportive, and whether or not you've got that support to motivate you to do things for yourself. So yeah, and taking chances as well. We've got some questions. Well, the next question is actually about the top 3 soft skills, and we actually do have some questions in the chat asking about skills. Would it be okay if I read 2 of these questions from the chat, and then if Shanai or Lisa want to take on the, what are the top soft skills, just so you've got an idea what the questions are from the audience. Andy's asked, would it help to also learn security testing, to learn about cybersecurity, and have you got any places that you can recommend to look at that? And we have a question from Nandini asking, how much experience are you expected to have for cybersecurity grad roles? And then again, are there any suggestions about where you might look for those roles? So yeah, go ahead and answer the question about that, but also thinking about the top 3 soft skills as well.
Lisa, do you want to jump in first, or do you want me to?
I can jump in on the soft skills side of things. So without a doubt, I would say communication skills are absolutely vital, because you need to be able to have clear writing to draft incident reports, policies, guidelines, etc. And then I think as well, critical thinking and problem solving, adaptability and resilience, all really key and vital, I believe, to getting into cybersecurity.
Thanks for that, Lisa. Okay, so apologies, I'm not sure who raised the questions, but from how much experience from a grad perspective are you supposed to have? My understanding, and I can try and provide some information in the chat later on if I get it from my organisation. My understanding is that to get a graduate role in an organisation, you had to be on the actual programme, so you had to have been doing a graduate program to get one of those roles. Where there's experience differs slightly is apprenticeships. So I've got a new apprentice in my team this year who hasn't had any previous cyber experience. He's been in branch for 8 years. So I think one will obviously come from a graduate university side. Apprenticeship styles are actually more, they can apply from anywhere in the organisation or externally for an apprenticeship in a brand new area. So that is probably a really important distinction. The one around security testing, I think there was a question around security testing. I would say in my career, because obviously my team are responsible for building. I'm getting kicked out of this room, apologies, because we've hit 2 o'clock. But as we're responsible for building new platforms, we absolutely do need to think about testing those systems before they go live. So that absolutely is a really interesting one. If you're interested in the testing side of things, there's 100% opportunities in that area for sure.
If you need to switch your camera on, absolutely.
I'm going to have to switch it off, yeah.
Okay. And there was one more question, so we'll just hop on quickly onto the questions from the audience. There was another question here, and they had 3 questions. We've already answered the question about would you change anything in your career? Would you have done anything differently? I think we kind of touched on that. But somebody's saying that they're currently doing, I don't know how to pronounce this, is it CompTIA? Security Plus. And they're starting at 50 and have developmental language disorder. Is this a good move? Would anyone like to answer that one?
I can jump in on that one now if you like.
Okay.
I did see that one actually. Who was that?
No, it's in the chat. Is it
in the chat?
Yeah.
Damo, is that your one, Damo?
Yeah.
So if I'm perfectly honest with you, I think it depends on your skill set. If the CompTIA, if you really enjoy that type of work and you enjoy learning about that type of thing, absolutely, because what it'll do is it'll lead you to roles that use that type of skill set. I guess where you, maybe need to do a little bit more research is perhaps on those different types of roles. If you, for example, don't seem to fit in that natural sort of CompTIA area, there are a ton of other types of qualifications that could help you. You know, you could do a lot of cloud-focused qualifications in security, or you can do risk-focused ones. You know, it's all about kind of what interests you, what you think you're naturally good at as well. You know, what do you take to quite quickly? Because I think all of us can learn anything, but we're always going to be better, I think, at what we find interesting. So I would say if you're enjoying that type of qualification, absolutely, good move.
Okay, and the very last question, because we're about to run out of time, but what would you say is the best area of cybersecurity? And that's open to anyone.
I feel like the best area of cybersecurity will always be biased. I think everyone have an area they like, and I don't think there is, something you can say in terms of helping other people choose a career path. Everyone can provide their, good and bad experiences with their favorite areas, but in the end, that is sort of the beauty of cybersecurity, is that there are so many, favorite areas for so many different people.
I can come in on that just briefly. Think of it, the analogy that I use is, think of it like the medical profession, in that you might think you want to be, some sort of medical professional or a doctor, but there's so many different facets. So, do I specialize as a pediatrician? Am I a cardiologist? Am I an oncologist? Cyber's the same. There's so many different areas. So it is about finding the right one for you. From my perspective, I'm so passionate about the whole cyber awareness and training piece, because for me, I see the tangible benefits of that training to organizations to get them thinking about their cyber posture, empowering their staff to be a lot more cyber aware and thinking about things that they're clicking on and things that they're doing and so on. And that to me is really exciting and where I have a real passion for.
Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm not going to ask any more questions from the chat, unfortunately, because we have gone over time. I'd just like to thank all of our speakers. Thank you for organising and getting your talks together and for agreeing on questions. I can see that Shanai's obviously answering some of the questions in the chat. Please make sure you see those answers beforehand, before you leave the meeting, because I'm not sure if they'll be available after. And yeah, it's been great speaking to you all. Have you all put your contact details in the chat so that everybody knows where to find you on socials? If you could add to the chat, that would be great, because obviously we're going to be cutting off the call in a second. And of course, get in touch with any of us if you have any questions. Yeah, it would be good to hear from you, basically. Okay. Good.
Thanks very much, all.
Thank you, everyone. Add your details to the chat, as I said, and yeah, great speaking to you all. And I'll catch up with all of the speakers on LinkedIn after this. But yes, to everybody else, I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Bye.